Hello, everyone, and welcome to an interview with Emily Loudon and Ellen Campbell. And here's what's happening today. They have turned the tables on me. Emily and Ellen are going to interview me, which is crazy, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully, I'll have good answers for their brilliant questions. But let me introduce Emily is in Ohio, and Ellen's in Ohio. Actually, you know what? No, you're in charge now. Introduce yourselves.
So my name is Ellen Campbell, and I am the Assistant Director for Campus Involvement at Marietta College. And I just started this role, I don't know, about 20 days ago. And so I work with our Greek life students, and that's a new thing for me. I've been in higher education for a long time, and that's how Emily and I know each other. Emily and I, way back in the day, when she was a student at the University of Mount Union, I was the advisor for the programming board, which is how Em and I got connected, and then we'll bring Jason into that here in a second. So Emily, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Emily Loudon. I've been in higher education for about 10 years now. I'm currently seeking new opportunities. So just we all know higher education is changing through a variety of avenues and kind of ways. And so just because of that, I'm seeking some new opportunities here. I'm currently finishing my PhD in organizational leadership. So I'm in my last semester of coursework there. But yes, I was a student and Ellen was my advisor. And so for all you students or advisors out there, the tables can change and that relationship does happen. And it's brilliant and amazing and awesome because you do get to see the other side of it for it. And I was actually president of program board my senior year when Ellen was an advisor. And we know Jason because when I was at University of Mount Union, we as program board brought Jason to campus quite often, if I remember correctly, as a singer-songwriter, coffeehouse, acoustic artist. I think he did some MCing for us for some other various campus involvement projects, co-curricularly things, but that's kind of how we all know each other. And we all kind of have stayed in touch through our various careers and paths and have intertwined again today in 2021. So now we're doing this.
Yeah. Is that good enough for an intro, Jason? Does that work?
That is a great introduction. That is wonderful. Yes, of course, that's a perfect introduction. And it's awesome. It's just awesome that we have known each other for so long and that each one of us has gone through different iterations of our lives, or like we've evolved. We've evolved into 2021. I mean, Emily's going for a PhD. What is that? Right?
For her.
I don't think Ellen or Jason would have ever thought that would happen to me in college. Like, I will be real.
That's just amazing. That's just
I think
amazing.
that would have happened to me in college.
So cool. And yeah, just the memories. Yeah, such great memories of being with you on your campus. And the coffee house program that you had was just an awesome series. So kudos to both of you for making that happen. So, and thanks for bringing me to campus back in 1957.
I do believe that Jesus was a student at the time. So it was a while ago.
I'm the youngest one here. So.
Yeah,
Rude.
All right. Well, I'm excited. I'm curious to know where you guys are going to take this.
Yeah. So we thought we would do, since we know you as a singer-songwriter and have watched the evolution that has become Jason LeVasseur, we thought we would frame our questions in terms of your song titles.
Oh, fun.
So each question is a theme based off of a song title. Okay.
Oh yeah. Okay.
We went back through Spotify and like we were finding, and then of course, like as Emily and I are like writing out the questions and talking about it, we were cracking up laughing, like thinking about, oh, do you remember? And then do you remember? So
yeah.
Go with us on this little
I'm with you.
Adventure.
Yes. So, it's gonna be fun.
It will. And you're first.
I am first. I know, I'm scary. So I'm not sure. Should we tell him the song title and then ask the question? Okay.
Yeah.
So the song title for this question is "In the Mood for a Good Day."
Mm-hmm.
So how did you get started in kind of your background, and what did you want to do in college, and what did you want to be when you grew up? But how did that transition and lead to being a singer-songwriter / inspirational podcast person /
good question.
leadership speaker?
Great question. Big question. Big question. In the Mood for a Good Day is a song that I still play quite often. It's still in like my top five most downloaded songs. So thanks for asking about that. How did I go? What did I want to be when I grew up? In high school, I was a drummer and I was fantasizing about getting a guitar. Like I definitely had rock and roll dreams. I dreamt of being like in a big rock band with fire shooting out of the stage and smoke coming across my ankles and like thousands of people screaming for my band. That was the fantasy, of course, while I was in school. But the reality was that I wanted to be a high school English teacher. In high school, my favorite teachers were my high school English teachers, and I loved going to summer camp. And all my summer camp senior staff were school teachers, and I was like, "This is the best life ever. I'm going to be a high school teacher and a summer camp counselor." So that was my intent, right? That was my goal going to college. I did change my majors a couple times, trying to figure out what I wanted to wind up teaching, and ultimately was English. But throughout that, I got a guitar for high school graduation, started learning it. I took a gap year and I went on an exchange program, started learning to play the guitar while in Italy. So I learned some Italian folk songs in some of my first songs. But then by my senior year, I was getting my student teaching in with 11th and 12th grade, but I was also in a band that was getting paid to play. And so when I graduated, I was like, well, I'll take a year and play in this band, and then I'll teach in a year. And that led to many years later, 13 albums, 20 awards. Like I'm still taking a year off, basically. Yeah. Yeah. If that helps answer, and how did it lead? And then there's another part of it where in 2009, one of the advisors who I was working with in Connecticut, Sarah Ryan, an amazing advisor who's now at UMass Lowell, came and saw me at camp and saw me doing a staff training or participating in some summer camp staff training activities, and realized that I had more to offer her students than just a coffeehouse performer or just an MC. Is that I had this whole other world that I'd compartmentalized, because even when I would go to NACA, in those years, I was a performer. I didn't see myself as an educator, even though I was an educator in this alter ego, the other life. And then Sarah really helped me realize that I could bring those two together. Yeah.
Yeah, so that leads into the next question really, really nicely. And we're using the song Not Your Hero.
Mm-hmm.
So when did you first realize, you talked a little bit about it in that last answer, but that your platform, your stage
Right.
was more than just singer-songwriter, and then how did that evolution start to happen for you?
I think 2009 was the real turning point, and that's when I created the Rockstar Project, because I didn't want to confuse myself and others. Because if you were booking Jason LeVasseur, many folks were booking Jason LeVasseur, the speaker, and some folks were booking Jason LeVasseur, the artist, and there were schools that were even thinking they were booking Jason LeVasseur, the comedian, and I was never promoting myself as a comic. But I would get to some campuses and it would say Jason LeVasseur comedy, and I was like, uh-oh, well, they're in for a really boring night of song, right? But it's because I would tell funny stories in between songs. Anyway, so I created the other name so that I wouldn't confuse the two, and so that schools wouldn't confuse the two when they were booking the Rockstar Project versus Jason LeVasseur, the artist. And then I think Not Your Hero is a great song to use in this idea, because it went from, as an artist, you're trying to promote your name and your brand, and you're putting yourself out there because you're writing songs that you hope have an impact. And there's part of an artist ego where there's like, this applause is for me. It's like there's that, and then the transition to being a teacher is that it's not about you. It's not about you at all. It's about your audience, and that's really where that switch. So Not Your Hero is where I wasn't seeking applause. I wasn't seeking affirmation for me. I wanted to make a greater impact. And one of the things that Neil deGrasse Tyson, who I'm a big fan of, I watched one of his videos this year, and he said something that really is the way I felt. And that was, I don't actually, at this point, I don't mind, or I don't have a feeling about you remembering my name, right? If you attend one of my workshops, it doesn't matter that you remember my name, but I want you to remember what we talked about. Right? I want you to remember the lessons that were shared. And that's a big difference. Like when you're an artist selling your CDs, you're like, remember me. It's all about me. It's all about me. And now it's not. I'm not your hero. I'm not trying to be your hero. I'm trying to be your teacher.
Yeah.
It's like we
Okay.
knew what we were doing, like choosing these topics.
I know.
I love it.
Oh, these are going very well. I love this. So the next question is walking in your footsteps.
Uh-huh.
So within like the last 10 years, let's say, 15 years, you've seen the student population change, although the student population age of 18 to 22 has stayed the same.
Yeah.
The US and the world has greatly changed since then. So how do you keep it impactful and relevant to students today and each year that you go to campus or are doing performances or speaker series?
It's a great question, and I will go with the theme of walking in your footsteps, which is a cover song written by the Police. So I do
Oh,
that is not my song, but it is a song. It is actually one of the first songs I ever learned to play on guitar because it's only two chords. It's actually and that was like one of the first songs I could perform. But I think with thematically, walking in your footsteps means that I'm paying attention to what other people are doing, and I'm not. I'm always learning new things. I'm always going to other events, and when I go to conferences, I go to sessions to learn more, to stay on top of what's going on campuses, so that I know what Ellen's going through. I know, maybe what you're studying or what your main concerns are right now in higher ed. Just if that's what we're talking about, just higher ed. Walking in your footsteps means that you're always willing to learn from others, and I think that's just a great way to go about living. Yeah, and I don't mean to jump ahead a little bit, but I've thought a lot about and maybe you have a question that relates to this, like the awards that I've won now at 20. This year I won NACA Legend and Virtual Artist of the Year. Is that I take those awards and I put them behind me in a way. I don't have a trophy shelf, so that it's not. I'm not up. I'm not my ego. Like I'm appreciative of the recognition,
yeah.
but I'm still forward moving,
Right.
right? And that's something I thought a lot about over the last month, actually. And the idea is that that I would recommend to everybody to put your trophies in a duffel bag, right? And free and honor them, but I don't mean to really literally put them in a duffel bag, but move forward from that, and don't rest on your laurels.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I'm thinking about like my race medals from like when I act like I can run full marathons and things like that. Like I hang on to that where I'm like, yes, rather than like think like the forward process of thinking about, okay, what's my next thing? What's the next thing I need to be doing? So that's a great point. Great lesson.
Yes, I want you to honor those things. I want you. Yes, those are definitely accolades that you deserve. Like you worked very hard to get that. You worked very hard to get that, but that's not your final chapter,
Right.
right?
Right.
I think you're right. People do hang on to that a lot. And I think there is something about putting it on your shelf for a week and then putting it away and saying, what's next?
Mhm.
I do agree. I do agree with that. And I think like, even in my transition of moving, like I've had to clean out a lot of things because I am like, quote, done with them,
Mhm.
and I've come across like, just old things from work or stuff that you've kept in your desk. And I'm like, I really don't want this. I really don't need this. I need to like, that was a chapter in my life and now moving forward. So I agree with that, Jason. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, Emily and I talked a lot about when we were getting ready for this, because both of us have gone through the process of having our positions eliminated at
Yeah.
campuses and going through that job loss. And so that's, if you get stuck in that mindset, right, that you can create some pretty serious bitter feelings and just some not good things, right? If you've had that negative thing happen to you, and if you can't
Yeah.
put it on a shelf and think, process it appropriately, recognize it for what it is, and then be able to move on. You can get stuck for sure.
Yeah, and with that idea, when we're talking about like leadership succession, for student leaders, it's one of the things that I really came to realize this year is that every job is a transitional job.
Mm-hmm.
Like whatever position you're in right now is temporary, right? And
Yep.
whatever you're doing, as is evident by our democracy, right? That even the most powerful person in the world, that job goes to somebody else, right? So whatever your title is at your campus or at your job, you're there holding the baton for a period, and somebody else will replace you, and hopefully you're going to leave it better than you found it, right? But to be able to know that like your entire self-worth is not your title and is not your things you've accomplished. It's definitely part of your resume and who you are, but
Right.
it's not the end all be all.
Yeah. And I think that's sometimes hard to like, because we as adults, right, don't necessarily have a good grasp on that for ourselves, let alone trying to help the college students that we're working with process that and understand that being the president of the programming board for a year, yes, but that is not, your sole purpose in life, right, Emily? Like,
Yeah.
thinking
Yeah.
back to that time, and it's not that you did that, Emily. I'm not like,
Yeah. Emily was walking around with a scepter and a crown, just going like, "I'm the president. No, I'm changing my title to the queen."
No, I didn't. I
yeah,
didn't. But I
yeah,
think like Ellen and I were talking about this too when we were kind of prepping for these questions, like, just higher education jobs in and of itself, like every campus is structured differently. A director of student life or campus life at one college might be the equivalent of associate or assistant director at another college. A job title doesn't define who you are. It's what you do to make an impact on the campus, to make an impact on those students, to better it for the better for however long you are going to be in that position. Community colleges are structured differently than four-year colleges, and public and private, and so there's all these kind of factors in it. So I think the best advice, I'm not sure if Ellen gave this to me or not, maybe she did, but sometimes you have to do a lateral move before you go up,
Yeah.
because you're going to get a better skill set for it. You're going to get more experience. And it might be at a different institution that you would have never, ever thought of. But it's going to make you stronger and better for the next position candidate. And I think like I've done that. I've taken that advice. I've been bitter about it because it hasn't worked out in my favor initially, but I think in the long run, these positions that are coming available now and the transition of higher education is definitely going to be a benefit. So yeah.
You've got all these new tools in your tool belt. You've just
I
got,
do.
yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah. All right, Ellen, you're up.
this is my favorite song. We all know it.
I do.
It's Driver's the DJ.
Driver's the DJ, yes.
So, was there ever a moment where you thought you were going to have to be different or make yourself a gimmick, right? Like I have said the word evolution, and I think that's like supplanted in my mind because not that Justin Lively was like a gimmick, right? But the
Yeah.
evolution of dance, that was his thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you ever think that you were going to have to just like really focus in on one thing and go with that? Or were you ever like, what was that thought process for you like?
I don't think I have the ability to focus. So that's a bonus. That's a bonus for my lack of no. Did I ever think that I would I think I think I was lucky in that I had always support and affirmation with being authentic. And one of the things that I remember hearing in my first years of touring and playing to large audiences was that I wasn't different on stage than I was off stage. And hearing that early on when you're in the formative years of building a fan base and people getting your autograph, but now and then because there are performers who are such great performers, but they're playing a role, right? And I just happened to have been in a band with these guys who were authentically kind camp counselor kind of personalities off stage and on stage, right? If we saw somebody fall down in the middle of a song, we would see if they were okay. Like that's just kind of who we were. And I liked, and they were old. I joined a band with guys that had graduated 5 years before me, and I really, even though I had a life admiring older camp counselors, I think in the touring world, I was very lucky to spend time with people who were kind and authentic. And we wore the same clothes on and off stage. Right?
Quite literally.
I always looked like a rock star.
You said something in that answer when you said playing to large audiences. Are you saying that the 50 people that would come to the Mount Union shows was not a large audience?
No, that's huge.
I'm confused.
That's enormous compared to my living room, right? It is. But in that first year, I mean, we had opportunities where I opened for the Goo Goo Dolls, I opened for Dave Matthews, I opened for John Mayer. Like I was in arenas and stadiums and sometimes on college campuses, but we were a very popular North Carolina indie band. And we were easy to work with. And our load in was easy. And we didn't have any demands. Like our rider was like a bottle of water at most. Like we didn't, and so everyone was like, let's get Life in General. That was the name of my band, Life in General. We were like the go-to opener for major events in the Southeast because they didn't have to deal with anything. We did a great job. We got the crowd psyched for the headliner. We played great music, and we had really nice merchandise too. So it made us, so there were larger crowds. But 50 is the number that is my favorite. 50 is my favorite number. Yeah.
Yes.
So can you talk to like students or whoever's listening really about how it feels to be your authentic self and what that looks like? And like, you know, so, especially in today's age with social media and trying to put up this, you know, performance and, you know, all of that sort of stuff. How do we encourage people to do that, to be their authentic selves?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think one of the epiphanies for me is that, and this has really been helpful as an artist, right? So I realized early on that not everybody likes me, right? Not everybody like, I write songs. I'm lucky that I'm on a Zoom call with two people who like my songs, right? But there's hundreds and there's thousands of people who don't like my songs, right? But I have to continue to be me and put myself out there and write the songs that I write and put them out there. And people, not everyone's gonna dig what I'm doing. And I think that's a really important part about understanding yourself as a student and as a person. And social media, you want to get, you know, it's sort of you're basing your validity or your value based on the number of likes or shares that you get or comments that you get that are positive. But when you are authentically you, your real fans will find you and they will support you. And you're not going to win over 100% of your audience. I can't go into a concert saying everybody here is going to love me because most of the concerts I'm performing at are sponsored by a school. They're free. Nobody bought a ticket. Right? So nobody invested in me. They invested in an event. And so they come to the event and there's a dude up there and I have to win them over. And I don't win 100% every time, but I am myself. And the people who like me really like me, right. which is a bonus. So that's what I would say about being your authentic self is really just understand that when you are your authentic self, not everybody's going to dig what you're doing. But you need to dig what you're doing. You need to be into what you're doing.
That's such a relief, right? Yeah. I'm relatively old at this point in my career. And I think that once I finally got to the point where I realized I'm not going to be every kid's person on campus. I am not going to be for some people. I am for others. But once I like found that out for myself, I was like, well, that takes a lot of pressure off of you, you know?
It does. It takes a lot of pressure. And I think in the marketing world or in the business world, you know, it's called the right fit client, right? Mm-hmm. You know, you could have a mailing list of 20,000 people, but if it doesn't matter if you've got 20,000 people who see your ads if they don't want to buy what you're selling. But if you've got 100 people that you know love your product, right? Mm-hmm. Then that's your right fit client. Your real fan is the person who actually likes what you're doing. And that's who you need to be in the world.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think just in being, Ellen, you talked about this, like the practical world, real world of this, of being your authentic self. And there is a leadership theory of authentic leadership that I've been studying. And that one was just kind of resonating with me when Jason was talking too, because it is difficult to be your authentic self. And I think as professionals, you know, Jason has said this, like we need to be telling students like this isn't going to be your end all, like being your true self of where you fit and, you know, not having to go to work in your life, but going to fun, you know, and finding that true niche of, you know, kind of the Venn diagram of what you like, what you don't like, and kind of things like that, I think is a hard lesson because sometimes opportunities are hard to come by. And so I think that's one of the things that students kind of struggle with. And I think as professionals, we have to kind of work on that too. So.
Yeah. And the last position that I took, you know, it had a price tag on it and came with a bunch of money. And I was like, yes. 10 months. I lasted 10 months in that position. It was miserable because it wasn't authentically Ellen Campbell. And finally I was like, no, I'm good. I'm gonna go hang out with the Greek students. And so I came back to where I knew and challenge myself a little bit with working a different population, but it's freeing. It's liberating to get to that point in your life.
Yeah, that's great.
All right. So I have the next question, and you kind of talked a little bit about it. But the theme of their song is hanging out at truck stops.
Uh-huh.
And so besides coming, to Alliance, Ohio, which was in cornfields in northeastern Ohio, for 50 students, sometimes 60, maybe 75.
Oh yeah.
Depends
felt like thousands.
Thousands and thousands.
Especially when we put you in that back alcove where it like felt closer. Yeah. We got you.
I mean, you have to understand there's a part of being an artist that is delusions of grandeur, right? So you can close your eyes and be singing a song and imagine that you're John Bon Jovi and there's like, whoever it is that you think you want to be in that moment.
Yes.
But, you remember seeing me that I leapt up in the air at the end of acoustic solo songs because I, in my mind, was in a stadium. And maybe there were 40 people on beanbags, but I was in a stadium, right?
While Linda was
back to the question. Truck stops. What was the question again?
So here's the question. So besides coming to Alliance and playing for 50 people, what is the cool moment for you in your travels and your shows? Also besides coming to see Ellen and I when we were.
All right. So let me talk about truck stops, if you don't mind, because I think that, and this also relates to everybody's job, right? One would think that I have the dreamiest job in the world, right? As a touring performer, but it involved lots of things that I didn't want to do. And no matter what your goal is for your career, it's going to require work. So truck stops were not my favorite places to be, but I had to go there to get gas. I had to spend
Jason,
weeks and months away and traveling. Yes.
Do you stopped and froze for a second? Sorry.
Oh, I did. Exciting.
Yeah.
Only on your end, Emily.
Sorry, I just didn't know about recording. It sounded like he was talking like a monkey, and I just didn't want it to be on this.
That's one of my other roles. I'm learning other languages. I'm trying to diversify, and I want to be able to do more. I want to do more zoo events. Yeah.
You can play in front of stadiums then. I'm just saying.
I'm delusional. It doesn't matter.
It might have been my internet, I do say, but it did seem like he froze, and I just didn't want him to have to
repeat myself.
Yes, but you are gonna have to repeat.
You were asking about highlights. You were asking about highlights, and I'm gonna change that up a bit and say like it's the challenging moments of any job, like in my case it's isolation, hotel rooms, traveling, eating alone, going to movies alone, right? And you just sort of have to learn how to do that and be good with being alone and not being lonely. And so the highlights for me were just being with other people, right? Like, I'm an extrovert. It's obvious. So the highlight for me was pulling up to the event, the campus, and meeting the hosts. And I say it like it was so long ago. It was just last March. I mean, it was, but even for me, like the anticipation of turning on a Zoom, I'm excited to see people. I am. So, but Emily, I don't know if you're looking for like specific moments. I can say that there were moments when I opened for the Roots in Boston at an outdoor concert, and I was the only opener, a white guy with an acoustic guitar and a hip hop audience in Boston, and it was to date the highest merch sales I've ever had because of the way that I was authentically me when I walked on stage. I wasn't pretending to be a good fit for an opener for the Roots. I got heckled, and I laughed it off. I mean, can you imagine? I walked out on stage and I'm just this dude with a guitar from North Carolina, and so but I played songs and I told stories and I connected with enough of the audience that I ended the show on a real high note, and so that was one of those moments where I walked out on stage going like, this was a bad idea. right?
Oh
This is
crap.
a bad idea. And it's those moments when I know that I can when I can change that energy of thousands of people was really that's a victory. That's a victory because but there it was just a fun and then, okay, and then this year my highlight for this year was and also because I get to work with them again in June. I get to work for 5 days with this group. Is there's a group in Kansas, in Wichita, that works with blind students, and I was the opening speaker for a blind middle school conference on Zoom, and that was amazing. And don't think that I wasn't nervous. I was so nervous about that.
Aw.
And they reached out to me, and I'm now doing like I think close to 10 events with them in June with high school and middle school on Zoom with blind and visually impaired students.
That's
So
awesome.
that's there's like a what's the highlight for me is being able to make it worthwhile for somebody to join me on a call.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, you talked about this.
I know. This is a
It's
great
like
question.
and that, and it's like, okay, like he's like kind of good at his job, whatever. Um, so this next question, we went with the song title, No Need to Be Lonely,
Mm,
right? And so you talked about the difference between feeling lonely and being alone, right? There is a difference between that. But talk about what that work-life balance looked like for you prior to COVID,
mhm,
and what the travel schedule, what that, because your kids were young. Your kids
mhm.
were like, you were on the road and your kids were born, right? Like those kinds
Right.
of,
Yeah.
what did that look like
Yes.
for you?
What did it look like? I mean, the year that Lily is my older daughter. The year she was born, I was, um, I think I did 70 college. No, gosh, I did 100. This is I think a record for anybody, and I don't wish it on anybody. I did 100 colleges in one semester,
Wow.
and yeah, and it was just it was a fluke. I was the I don't know how it happened, but I had a good showcase submission the previous summer, and I was the opening night MC at 5 regional conferences, right? And that's unheard of, and it was totally different committees that asked me to MC, um, but everyone was a like knock it out of the park showcase, and everybody block booked, and I did 100. I literally did 100 colleges in between January and May. And so I don't think on that tour, I don't think I had time to be lonely. Like
No need to be lonely.
No need to
no
be
time to be
lonely.
lonely. But I mean, the no need to be lonely is that's a very heartfelt song, and it was more so written for um, my wife, who and for anybody who has to leave somebody at home while you're out doing something. Really, I have lots of songs like that where it's I'm not sad. There are moments of hard work on the road and loneliness, but my life is ever changing. I'm seeing different things. Whereas when the person's at home, the rooms look the same. It's just that there's somebody missing, right? And that's a very different perspective on separation. Like I'm continually distracted, right? Oh, look at that sign. Look at the shiny thing over there on the highway. You know, and in my only in my mind do I think that somebody's at home pining for me, right? That's my own again my delusion. Like everybody's just sitting at home crying until I come home.
That's true.
But I think with like the advancement of like, cell phones and FaceTime and Zoom, like I think I don't say that's helped, but I hopefully like that's been a little bit more of a connection because I think, prior to you had to use like, rotary phones or hotel
Yeah,
phones or,
yeah,
you had to go find a phone.
yeah.
Um,
The
or
technologies, I think the
yeah,
technology when it even when it started with FaceTime was great, but I think that for that it's children of a certain age who can
yeah.
understand that it did I think there was a heartbreak moment when my daughter wanted a hug and I was on a phone. She could see me on the screen and but now, so this year, this technology I think is the most amazing way to connect with people. I've made genuine new relationships and built friendships, and helped others build relationships and friendships and build their teams right here. This is amazing. How lucky are we that we are sitting across from each other, where the technology is just making our lives more connected. So I love it.
Yeah. So, and then, you mentioned the one award of being the virtual artist of the year. So obviously you adapted to March 2020 until now, right? Like, what did that really, like, what was that thought process like of like, oh, I better do something quick, or like,
There was definitely there was an uh-oh. Yeah, there was an uh-oh. Sure, there was an uh-oh, but I think everyone had that where every possible source of income was taken away. I had a really beautiful spring tour booked, March, April, May. I had orientations already in place. I had fall schedule, and one by one, we were canceling. And I knew ahead of time, 'cause I had some things canceled in early March in Seattle. I was doing a Key Club event with high schoolers out there that was canceled because that was the first real outbreak.
right.
So I think I was lucky to have an early cancellation, and then I was reaching out to folks trying to see what the possibilities were, if I could facilitate for them online, and then the creation of the Facebook group really led to me answering questions for myself, and then realizing that I had answers for others, and then creating the community, which I only created it. I didn't build it. Others built it. Like, you have been as essential as I have been to that. Like, the coolest part about it is that everyone's been sharing and willing to share. But if this is an interview about me, I'm still not any different than I was on a stage. I turn up the energy for Zoom because it's a different. I might do this here, which I might not do on stage. You're in the same room.
Yes, you would do that on stage.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
you
for those of
would. Yes,
listening-
you
for those of
would.
you listening to this and not seeing this, I did an amazing dance just then. Like Justin Timberlake watches me to learn his new moves. But yeah, so but even there, I really think that I haven't strayed from who I
Yeah.
am or who I was, in the sense that I'm not using effects. I purposefully, in my teaching to all the advisors and facilitators, is that this is my stage, and this is what I have to work with, and I am only using the technology that exists on my computer. This is a prop. So right now I'm pointing. If you're on the podcast, I'm pointing to a really fancy microphone. It's not on. It's not on. It just looks cool, right? It just looks cool. But the point I make with that is that you don't need fancy stuff to be an engaging facilitator. You don't need to be a teacher. I never, whenever I was writing my workshops or doing in-person events, I was still a camp counselor and a wilderness guide, where I was in the woods with no electricity. So I've never been reliant on pedals and effects, right? So anything that I do can be done just with a guitar and the voice, no effects, no. So, and that was the same way I wanted to approach this, was that I wanted to be me here, and I feel like that's been my goal all along. And there are other presenters who are so good at using all the technology and all the bells and whistles, and it's so much fun to watch them. But that would be out of that would be not part of who I am.
Not your authentic self.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So this is probably one of my favorite songs of yours. And I have to admit that I've listened to it since we've kind of started this process. It's been on my like Spotify list now again. So it's Big Sky. So if you had $1 million to give back to a college, university program or department, what department or office would you give it to, and why would you give it to them?
That's a great question, and it might. I think right now it would be to TRIO programs, student support services.
Yep.
I love student activities. I love student engagement.
Yeah.
But this year has been this switch for me where I've gotten a chance to work with a lot of. Well, it's been the last few years. I would like to help mentor programs, because I do think that student engagement and helping students feel connected to the campus is what helps keep them in school. But it's not it's connection to other people
Yeah.
that, whether it's a group setting or a one-on-one tutor. Yeah, that's a great question. It would be, yeah, it would be for first gen low income students. Well, easily. I think everybody else has resources.
I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Agree.
So
Okay.
yes.
So that's a great answer. And I think that is that early access to college and normalizing going, right? Like trio is big stuff. I think it's great. So, all right, this song title that we're using, Those Were the Times. So what have you seen as the biggest shift in student culture? And what do you see like on the horizon next 4 years? Like what's coming up? What do you think? If you're looking into the Jason LeVasseur crystal ball, what is it?
That's a great question. I can't even see next Friday. Like,
I will stump him with that one. Dang it.
I will say though, that the biggest shift in the last, 25 years of performing at colleges was the introduction of laptops into student centers and audiences. And where prior to having your own device or smartphone, even more so, as a performer, I could play at a community college lunchtime show and not have a single person looking at the stage, right? That not a single person. That doesn't mean they weren't listening. Doesn't mean they weren't having fun, right? It just meant that their eyes, they were doing something else. So that was a big one from a performer standpoint. As a speaker, that doesn't happen. As a speaker, I'm coming in and there's a dedicated audience. If I'm doing a workshop, students are not on their laptops unless they're taking notes and they're engaged in the moment. But from a performer to audience where it's me, just performing to you, people can be doing anything. You could be texting your friends. You could be looking. You can be searching for your socks on Amazon. So that was I think that was the biggest one as a performer. And then the crystal ball is that I know that I'm not going to know anything. I absolutely know that I have to, when things come along, like new technology, is that I can't ignore it and I can't pretend it's just fleeting, right? I'm going to embrace it. I was an early adapter to Facebook, and it's kind of bit me in the butt in a way. And then you fill up your friend. You can only have 5,000 friends, right? So I have to delete people, right?
We feel honored that we're still on your list, then.
I know. After all this time, like.
But from the stage, when that first came out, you're like, hey, everybody, let's be friends on Facebook. And so I'm still finding students that friended me in 2007. I'm like, they've never liked anything that I've done since, and I don't even like. So you have to. I'll tell you, I'm telling everyone a secret right now. The most effective, systematic way to cleanse your Facebook, because no one will see your posts. You can't say like, hey, if you're not my friend, unfriend me. This is that you tell everyone on their birthday, happy birthday, is that when those, so I have a daily routine of birthday deletes. So I do. So it tells me whose birthday it is, and I will click on, I will say like, oh no, I'm friends with Ellen. Happy birthday, Ellen, right? I'm friends with Emily. Happy birthday, Emily. And then it's like a name, and I'm like, wait a minute, we became friends in 2007. We've never liked anything in common. We have no friends in common. Delete. It's like a quiet, happy birthday, you'll never hear from me again. and it's systematic, and it's non-aggressive. It's just I'm stepping out of your life, although I haven't been in it for the last 10 years.
There you go.
But then my crystal ball is that as new things come along and I hear them, I want to investigate them. Right. So the crystal ball is that I don't know.
Yeah.
And I will never know.
I think that's a good lesson though, because I think 2020 kind of, we're all thinking ahead. We all have these grander plans, and I think it was kind of the nature of, we don't know anymore. Like, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or next Friday, or, I could have won the lottery last week. Like that would have been great.
It would have been great, right? Yeah, that would have been fun.
But I mean, we really don't know. And we don't know what the fall is going to look like for higher education. We don't know what the summer is going to look like.
Right,
so.
We also don't know if Clubhouse, the new technology of Clubhouse, which is another an amazing new app, is going to do away with the podcast. Right? Because me as a podcast host, I may move everything to Clubhouse because I can have live interactions over and over again and have larger conversations, right? The podcast is a recorded thing you can listen to over and over again, which is what this is. And in Clubhouse, which is new-ish, right, is that you can have professional conversations and an audience. So it's like a live panel discussion all the time. The one thing that isn't available yet is the recording of those conversations. So that's incentivizing people to show up to all the events because there is no recording of it. So if you want to get your golden nuggets of information, you got to go to those workshops or go to those conversations. Whereas with this, somebody could listen to our conversation today hundreds of times.
And they will.
And they will. And they
Because we're
will.
awesome.
Especially with my dancing.
That nobody could see. That was good.
Right.
Do you want to preference this, Ellen? Do you want to
Yeah.
Okay.
This is our last series of questions, and we're calling it the lightning round. However,
one-word answers? Do I get one-word answers?
Yes.
One word, one sentence. Like, let's not dwell on it, okay?
Okay.
And
we're moving on.
but the song is the steps of St. Patrick's because, right, each question is a step. See, we thought about this a lot. And Emily she's like, we have a little Google Doc up, right? And she was like so good, like while you were talking, she was highlighting hers. There was a whole process, right? Emily, Ellen, she was like, oh, I'll just put the initial for our first name, our last names on here. So I'm looking here, CL, and I'm like, okay. It was a process for the two of us. It was a process. We got it now, though.
You got it.
Okay, first question. If you could be anything in the refrigerator, what would you be and why?
Butter.
Your Coke.
Why?
Why? It mixes well with dishes. You cook with it and spread it on bread, hot bread. Spread it on hot bread, which is called toast. You can saute vegetables in it. You can put it on noodles. Like, make every child happy. Butter. It's everyone's best friend.
I like it. All right, Pepsi or Coke?
I'm gonna go with Pepsi.
Okay.
Ooh, wrong answer. Cheetos or Doritos?
Oh, Cheetos.
Wrong answer. Toilet paper.
Can I give you justifications for these? Can I give you justifications or not?
Being from the South, I'm concerned about your answer of Pepsi.
I know, but my one of my greatest mentors in Maine at summer camp, his go-to drink was Diet Pepsi, and it's part of his legacy is that Diet Pepsi is our summer counselor like day off drink. And
Okay.
and so when you say Pepsi or Coke, I mean, I have a lot of friends from college who live in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And yeah, I get it. I get it. But I'll defend Pepsi for me.
Okay. All right.
I love you for what you love. Yeah.
That's good. It's a good answer. Okay.
Do you want to defend your Cheetos or Doritos?
Yeah. Okay. Cheetos is fun because Cheetos make more of a mess. Like
They do.
Cheetos leave a lasting thing on your hands, right? And so it's more of a commitment. It's more of a commitment.
Okay.
I like commitment.
Okay, toilet paper under or toilet paper over?
Like behind the back, kind of like. Are you talking about roll? I think.
Like when it's on the roll, does it go over or?
Oh yeah, it's over. It goes over. It comes towards the room, over the top.
Yes.
It rubs against the wall. Why do you want it to rub against the wall? What are you cleaning up on the wall?
Ew. Okay. Parks and Rec or The Office?
Oh.
I was stumped. The Office.
Okay.
Oh. Staying in or going out?
Staying in right now.
Good answer.
Yeah.
Survivor or Big Brother?
Wait, say it again. Survivor or Big Brother?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Survivor.
Mm-hmm.
Because I learn stuff. Big Brother, I feel sad for relationships.
It's true. It's a good point.
Survivor, I can learn. I take notes.
Wilderness experience. Sweet or salty?
Yes, salty.
Good answer. Country or folk?
Fun tree? Coke? Coke!
Here's the next one.
Ready? Country or bluegrass?
Oh, shoot. Country.
Ooh.
And here's
Travel.
why. Here's why, because there's pop songs, and I love pop music.
Oh, okay. Okay, that makes sense. Travel or work from home?
Work from home.
Hmm. Singer or songwriter?
Like who would I want to hang out with? A songwriter. Songwriter.
Okay.
Who would you want to be
Yeah.
Kelly
known
Clarkson.
for?
I want to be Kelly Clarkson. Yeah, I want to be Kelly Clarkson more so than Bob Dylan. I want to be Kelly Clarkson. So singer. I want to be Kelly Clarkson. Yeah.
Bob Dylan was a singer too.
She's a songwriter.
Kelly Clarkson didn't
Yeah.
started her career. Kelly Clarkson, like anybody that won any of those awards, any of those TV shows, is a phenomenal singer, right? But they didn't write the songs that they sing. Somebody else writes the songs they sing.
But now they do. So now they might be known better for their songs, which they sing.
Okay, Whitney Houston. I'll explain. There are people who write songs. That's what they do. They write songs. There are people who do drywall. There are people who do plumbing. There are people who are electricians, right? Whitney Houston, her first album is amazing because of the songs that she sings and she interprets, and it's a beautiful album. Her second album is not as good because she adamantly said, "Let's use these songs that I am writing," and the songs she was writing are not good. She'd only been writing songs for 6 months. You're not that good of a songwriter when you just start out. You get better at everything in life the more you practice it. So with Kelly Clarkson or any of those award winners, yes, eventually they take a role in the writing of the songs, but they are phenomenal singers who then develop a craft of songwriting. There are amazing songwriters who are introverts and shy and should never be on stage because they would melt. But they write great songs. So some of the songs that we all love and know, we don't know who wrote them. We know who wrote them if we read the liner notes of the album or we look it up. But the singers are the ones who interpret it and perform it. Does that help?
Unless you're Dolly Parton, and then you're amazing at both.
Stop.
Yes, this is true.
Yeah, there's no stopping Dolly.
No.
Yes.
Okay. This is the last one. Leadership artist or leadership speaker or
Yeah.
artist.
Speaker. More impact.
Yeah.
Yeah. I already got awards for singing and strumming.
He's like strumming.
Yeah.
Strumming.
I mean, definitely speaker, definitely teacher. Yeah.
Do you feel like you've really come back to your roots? Like you actually are using
Definitely.
your college
Yeah,
degree now?
I think there was always something not missing, but a longing when I was touring as an artist that I was just bouncing off the tops of the heads of all the audience members, right? That and that's sort of this relationship where you're performing and you get people clap for you and then you go away. Whereas, and that's but actually it's my own misinterpretation because a lot of people have relationships with the music after an artist is gone. Like, if you bought one of my CDs, you have a relationship with those songs and I'm not there. But as a speaker or a teacher, you're hopefully you're getting into the brain, not just bouncing off the top, and it's not a fleeting moment in their week.
Yeah. And I think, Jason, the evolution or the I guess process of that, I think it was a very fluid process for you. Like, I think you kind of started that because you were emceeing and people knew you as this and they saw you as this. So I think that transition was fluid. And I think you got to that point of being a singer-songwriter artist, but then also like an MC for various art, events on campus, whether that's like talent shows or open mic nights that students and program boards would want. But then it was kind of like you were doing that, you were planting those seeds, in those events, you just didn't realize it at the time. And I remember when I first started my first big head job, as I call it, like that was kind of the time you were starting that leadership series and you were just wanting to try it out. And I was like, absolutely, come down here and see, like, let's do this. So I think it was a good evolution in planting those seeds that I think intertwined just everything you had and got back to that foundation, like Ellen said. So
I appreciate it. As you were speaking, when you were talking about emceeing, I think this is important for anybody to know that the reason the success as an MC or as a show host is that I'm not trying to outshine the student performers.
Right.
And I've seen a lot of MCs who undermine the performer who just walked off stage because of their own ego, not their own self-confidence not being there. Right. And your role as an MC or as a host or as a facilitator is to elevate the audience or the other performers. Right. You're part of an event. The event is not you, right? That's just I could talk about. I should do a master class for MCs. I love MCing, but I see some great ones, but I also see where there's room for improvement.
Yeah.
Next Tuesday. Join us next Tuesday for.
You just did the dancing again. So
I know.
This was different. This one was different. I pointed my fingers.
Oh.
Yeah, this is a way more like, hey, how are you?
Finger guns.
Yeah. Finger guns. I can't believe, like, what's crazy about this conversation is that we've talked for like more than 20 minutes. It's
almost an hour.
I know.
Yeah.
And it feels like, but it feels like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So engaging.
That's all we have. That's it.
That's all we're done.
That's it?
That's it.
I mean, we could come up with more for next week, but you know.
Oh my gosh, let's do this again. This was really fun for me. I've had a blast with the podcast, really, truly. Yeah. I've learned so much from the folks that I've talked to, and so it's been wonderful. But yeah, I appreciate you guys coming up with this idea of turning the tables on the interviewer.
Flipping the script.
And letting me just chat. Well,
yeah.
I hope to all our listeners out there, hope you had fun today and enjoy this and listen to this one over and over again. I mean, Ellen and Emily were dropping some knowledge bombs today.
There were some treats and treasures along the way for everyone to hear.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what? So in our minds right now, what was the most important thing that we talked about today? What is the big takeaway for our listeners?
I think for me, I think it was just for students and student leaders on campus. I think it's being your true authentic self. I think that just comes back to it. I think, you know, in today's day and age, we're also kind of struggling with kind of where we are and where we fit in a technology world and how we're adapting, and are my skills, you know, needed and wanted, and you know, where do I fit in on campus, especially like first year students. I know this has been a really hard year for them, and trying to find, you know, that connection with friends, you know, that true, you know, physical in-person meeting at a coffee shop or whatever. Yeah. And so I think it's just understanding who you are, where your roots are, and what brings you joy, and just being your true authentic self, and your passion and your niche will find you as well. So
that's wonderful.
Yeah, I think the same thing, but I think like the step further of connections, and no matter how long it had been, right? It had been a quick minute since you and I had said anything to each other, Jason. And so I'm glad I didn't get like the birthday dismissal on my Facebook. Right? But I think, and especially having having gone through 10 months of being pretty lonely, living in a new place and moving and not being happy. This has brought me a lot of joy, and I'm going to start crying. Just the connections and knowing that people are out there who care about you, and let them see that you're sad, and let them see that you're lonely, and they'll help you. They're there for you. Yeah. So that's what I would say. That's
wonderful. And to know that being lonely is not, there's nothing wrong with feeling that way.
Nope. Not at all.
Yeah.
And you can feel lonely in a very crowded room, or with a lot of, you know, Facebook friends or connections. And that is totally true. Ellen and I were talking about that when we were getting, you know, we both felt that way in previous roles or throughout, and you're always going to have that. But I think in understanding and recognizing that in an early process, and saying, this doesn't bring me joy, this isn't filling my cup up anymore, and I can do this for a short period of time, but I need to move on because it's not going to help me, and it's not going to help anybody else in the process of it. So, yeah.
Yep.
Love it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There we go.
Thank you. I'm going to say goodbye to our listeners, but not goodbye to you. So thanks everybody for being here. And thanks for being part of the Inspired Interviews podcast. Yay!